So let me pray and we'll start. Our Father, thank you for this time. We just praise you. We praise you that you are a God who is trustworthy and that you are our rock and refuge, and the Psalms point us to you. God, we thank you that you've given us a book like the Psalms, and even the way we're trying to learn about it, hopefully is encouraging to us about you, that we're learning something about you in the way you speak to us. And so, Lord, we pray that you'd help us in our time now. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so hopefully you got one of these. If you didn't, grab it. You're going to have to write on the back because there's no space in between these. In between these, but we aim for this part of this class. So last week, this week, and the next 2 weeks to be a workshop. So you're going to talk today, and if you don't talk, it's going to go really fast. So we're trying to look at a few Psalms. So the first 2 weeks, we're trying to give you overview and principles and characteristics and all those kinds of things to kind of help you and introduce you to the Psalms so that you have these tools. And then now we're trying to look at the genres, at least some of the genres, and try to apply some of that so that we can sort of like get some practice at using those tools for our own studies. So that's the goal of this time. So hopefully you don't walk away frustrated and say, well, I don't now know all these things about this particular psalm, because we're going to land in one psalm for most of our time. But that's not the point. The point is to try and learn the principles and exercise the tools a little bit. And hopefully you learn something, though, about the psalm. So today we're doing Psalms of Trust, or sometimes they're called Psalms of Confidence. And just so you know, I don't know if we said this when we were talking about the genres or not, but the genre list, if you were to look it up or Google it or something, you'll probably find different lists. Sometimes there might be 6 or 7 types of genres. Sometimes you might find somebody with 12 because they're getting really specific. I find those big lists mostly unhelpful. But what you'll find, if you get them all together, you'll find these basic ones that everybody agrees on. And that the reality of that will come into play with the psalm that we're going to look at. And I think we'll be able to draw something even from that. So just FYI on that. But this is a psalm of trust or confidence. And there's not a ton of them. Let's see, the list I have here, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 for sure. The one I have is not on the list that they give, where I drew this particular thing from. So you say 150 Psalms, only 9 Psalms of trust. There's probably more, but you're dealing with scholars, and scholars, their whole thing is find something new. So so they always like subdivide and redivide and so on and so forth. So if you would grab a Bible and open to Psalm 3. First thing I want to do is read a few of these. And just look at them. And then we're going to ask what characteristics, and I'll help you, but we're going to ask what characteristics make up Psalms of trust or confidence. How do you identify one? Okay, so Psalm 3 is often labeled as a psalm of trust. In my Bible, the heading that was put there by the editors, not the author, is confidence in troubled times. I don't know if you guys have something like that for Psalm 3. But let me read that. It says, Lord, how my foes increase. There are many who attack me. Many say about me, there is no help for him in God. But you, Lord, are a shield around me, my glory, and the one who lifts up my head. I cry aloud to the Lord, and he answers me from his holy mountain. I lie down and sleep. I wake again because the Lord sustains me. I will not be afraid of thousands of people who have taken their stand against me on every side. Rise up, Lord. Save me, my God. You strike all my enemies on the cheek. You break the teeth of the wicked. Salvation belongs to the Lord. May your blessing be on your people. Okay, what are things you just observed? You think this might be a psalm of trust. You're reading in the Bible, or you just read that. You saw the title, Confidence in Troubled Times. Maybe it's a psalm of trust. What are some of the things you might see that might help us with identifying characteristics of a psalm of trust? Okay, so there's some kind of trouble that's there. That might be true of all Psalms. I don't know. I haven't looked. I haven't surveyed for that. But I think that's right. So, what's eliciting the trust? Well, there's some kind of trouble. So in verse 1, Lord, my foes increase. There are many who attack me. What do you notice about that trouble? Anything? It might be too general of a question, but... Or do you notice anything about it? Yeah.
He feels totally overwhelmed.
Okay, he's overwhelmed. Yeah. How specific is this particular trouble?
It's not just one, it's many, 3 times.
It's many? Yeah. Why do you say 3 times?
Many are my foes, many rise up against me. Many
Verse 2.
So all in verse 1 and 2.
Yeah. Verse 1, 2 times. So the 2 lines of verse 1 and then verse 3. That's great. So that's a great observation as you're making up. So on your sheet, just notice, like, number 1, read the psalm a few times, make some general observations. If I'm looking at a psalm, if I'm reading it myself, read it a couple times. It might take me a couple times to read that to see, he said many 3 times. And I don't know what to make of it, but that's just something I'm observing. And so I would take notes. I would just note that, or note it in my head if I'm just reading. Okay, so there's trouble. Other characteristics that you might see.
Plea for help.
A plea for help. So because there's trouble, it makes sense there would be some kind of plea for help. That's right. So we get that. Where do we get that? Verse 4 is one example. I cry aloud to the Lord, he answers me.
7.
Verse 7, rise up, Lord, save me. And really, verse 7 is more of a plea for help. And then verse 3, what would you say about verse 3, anybody? That's the trust part. Molly?
It's stating something like objectively true about God.
Okay. So it's stating something. So yeah, but you, Lord, are a shield around me, my glory, and the one who lifts up my head. So notice how verse 3, Molly's saying that the orientation of the trust is reflecting on something about God. Right?
I see that as a contrast from verses 1 and 2.
Okay, a contrast, that we see that as a contrast in verse 3 from 1 and 2. So yeah, the foes are increasing. There are many around me. They're saying this, but you. So notice that, but you, right? So that's something you want to observe. Okay, we don't want to spend a lot of time here. Let's go to another one. But we're just trying to take a sampling right now, a core sampling out of the soil, and look at it and say, what do we have in the dirt? All right, so Psalm 23 is a good one. Somebody want to stand up and read this one for us? Or I guess if you could sit if you'll read loud, but. Yeah, you can sit if you take the mic. All right, Molly.
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Okay, some observations about this one, and you can compare and contrast a little bit with Psalm 3. What do you notice here? So thinking particularly about characteristics, we're just looking to try to identify characteristics of Psalms of trust, Psalms of confidence.
No statement of imminent danger.
Yeah, there's really no imminent danger. Is there any trouble here?
Only theoretical, walking through the darkest valley.
Okay, so in this particular one, verse 4 is as close as we get. So, and it's even when I go through. So we don't know that he is going through it right now. I fear no danger. For you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Okay? So that's different than what we saw in Psalm 3. Even though Psalm 3, it's a very kind of it was broad trouble. There are many foes. Like we don't really know what kind of foes, under what circumstances. We don't know any of that stuff. So very general and broad. But here, theoretical, we might say, or potential, we might say. Other things?
It's also all kind of goes with that, metaphorical. There's not really like all that he's saying is still waters, okay, pastures, okay, it's all metaphor, not specific. Yeah.
specific.
Okay, yeah. Lenny?
I see a lot of indicative statements. So content, no requests.
Yeah, so this might fall under sort of statements about God, right? So look at what God, that He is my shepherd. I have what I need. He lets me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He renews my life. The whole thing, you prepare a table in the presence of my enemies. The whole thing of this psalm is looking in that way.
Yeah, I hit on the reference of prepare a table in the presence of my enemies. So it looks like in this situation, the enemies are not a threat. Like they've already been defeated, and it's kind of a position of victory to some extent. So he's speaking about his confidence in the Lord as so certain that it's already passed for him. So even though he may be talking about future potential circumstances, his trust in the Lord is so certain of his deliverance, it's already done.
Yeah, yeah. Mike?
I would say, I see on the two of them, where a lot of times there's prayers and requests to God. This seems more like a prayer where you're preaching to yourself kind of thing. There's trouble everywhere, but God is this, so I will this, and God is still this.
Yeah, that's helpful, right? So if you're looking at this psalm, you're trying to apply it to your life, it's a prayer of confidence or trust. He's trusting in the Lord, but it's like he's preaching to his soul. There's not an imminent current threat, but perhaps in his heart there's some sort of angst, and he's reminding himself, you know. Okay, all good. Let's keep going. Go to Psalm 131. All right, this one's a long one. Somebody want to read it for us? All right, Beckery. Mike's coming.
This is Psalm 131?
Yeah, 131, all of it.
Lord, my heart is not proud. My eyes are not haughty. I do not get involved with things too great or too wondrous for me. Instead, I have calm and quieted my soul. Like a weaned child with his mother, my soul is like a weaned child. Israel, put your hope in the Lord, both now and forever.
So also a little different. Anything that you notice here?
Much more similar to 23 than 3.
Mm-hmm.
Again, no imminent danger, declarative statements about who God is, a lot of metaphorical language.
Yeah, so similar, Jack was saying, similar to Psalm 23, a lot of metaphorical language, no imminent danger, just confident trust in the Lord. I summarize that one?
Sure.
Or leave something out? Okay, what else?
It's a song of ascent, so they would be singing this,
Okay.
speaking this on the way to Jerusalem, right?
So as a psalm of ascent, yeah, that falls under like how is this psalm used in the life of Israel? So after it was written, they were using this as they were going up to the temple. Jason?
Maybe because it's a psalm of ascent, you see there's more action on his part here. A few times he's stating what he's actually doing. There's an action, verse 1 and 2 there.
Okay, I just want to show you this. Now let's go to the psalm we want to stay in for the rest of our time. So Psalm 71. I chose this one because I recently preached it, so that's easy for me. No. I chose that because I thought this was actually a little bit of a challenging psalm, and but I thought it could be useful as we work through it to then maybe I can help you see how I went from I don't know what Psalm 71 is about, let me read it, to okay, now I'm going to go preach it. I'm ready to go preach it on Sunday morning. So there's a process, right? And we're trying to introduce some of that to you. So I wanted to use that here real quick. So take a moment. We're going to read it 2 times. We're going to read it once by ourselves and then once aloud. So we're gonna do what the sheet says. We're going to read the psalm a few times. So read it first by yourself. I'm going to write some characteristics up here while you're doing that. All right, let me read it out loud. So if you would, just kind of like follow along. Lord, I seek refuge in you. Let me never be disgraced. In your justice, rescue and deliver me. Listen closely to me, save me. Be a rock of refuge for me, where I can always go. Give the command to save me, for you are my rock and fortress. Deliver me, my God, from the power of the wicked, from the grasp of the unjust and oppressive. For you are my hope, Lord God, my confidence from my youth. I have leaned on you from birth. You took me from my mother's womb. My praise is always about you. I am like a miraculous sign to many, and you are my strong refuge, My mouth is full of praise and honor to you all day long. Don't discard me in my old age. As my strength fails, do not abandon me. For my enemies talk about me, and those who spy on me plot together, saying, God has abandoned him. Chase him and catch him, for there's no one to rescue him. God, do not be far from me. My God, hurry to help me. May my adversaries be disgraced and destroyed. May those who intend to harm me be covered with disgrace and humiliation. But I will hope continually and will praise you more and more. My mouth will tell about your righteousness and your salvation all day long, though I cannot sum them up. I come because of the mighty acts of the Lord. I will proclaim your righteousness, yours alone. God, you have taught me from my youth, and I still proclaim your wondrous works. Even while I am old and gray, God, do not abandon me. While I proclaim your power to another generation, your strength to all who are to come. Your righteousness reaches the heights. God, you who have done great things, God, who is like you? You cause me to experience many troubles and misfortunes, but you will revive me again. You will bring me up again, even from the depths of the earth. You will increase my honor and comfort me once again. Therefore, I will praise you with a harp. For your faithfulness, my God, I will sing to you with a lyre, Holy One of Israel. My lips will shout for joy when I sing praise to you, because you have redeemed me. Therefore, my tongue will proclaim your righteousness all day long. For those who intend to harm me will be disgraced and confounded. Okay, let's just make some general observations, just things we observe. And I put just some basic characteristics up here, and maybe we'll pick at these as we go. But then these are just other examples if you want to note those somewhere, if you want to compare and contrast Psalms of trust and confidence. So just observations that you see that might help us.
So I see, O Lord, O God, 12 times in 24 verses.
Okay. O Lord, 12 times.
Or, O God.
Okay. So right away,
ESV.
So right away, if you notice that, what might that tell you? Or what's something you might draw from that? Just initially, you're just reading, you just read this in your morning devotional, you noticed, wow.
This is intimate. This is important. This is urgency. Lord, I need you. Lord.
Yeah. And it's the like he's addressing God directly, right? So like if we do that in common language, there's intensity there. I know it's very common in Scripture, but that's part of the point, right? If I go, Rick, listen to me, versus hey, I was going to tell you, like there's a different tone to that, right, Mike?
I was just going to say, from a more humble perspective, if it was a servant before a king, or even in the military, you may say, Sir, General, Mr. President, whatever. Okay. You would say something. It's a more humble, like, I need you. I'm here, and I'm coming to you.
Okay, yeah. So perhaps the address is all about the relationship, and he is the Lord. Yeah, that's good.
I guess one of the tones of the Psalms, it sounds like God is our greatest defender, both during our youth and our old age.
Okay, I'm gonna put that down as another observation. So tone seems to be, how'd you word that again? God is rock, is that what you said?
I said God is our greatest defender.
Greatest.
Yeah, both during our youth and our old age.
Okay, I'm gonna put youth and old age as another observation. So you combine these because you saw these together, but Beckery's noticing there's a tone. He's just observing. I feel like as I read this, the impression is the tone is that God's our greatest defender. So right away, your kind of heart is going in that direction. But then he notices something else. Youth and old age is mentioned. All right, George.
Just reinforcing that is he says again, like he looks to the past. And that inspires confidence for him to call upon God in the future.
Okay, so he's looking to the past, which is giving him confidence for future. Sorry, I don't have good penmanship. One more quick thing on youth and old age. Anybody notice anything about youth and old age? Like maybe a secondary observation about that you see?
Contrast verses 17 and 18. He's going from my youth to my old age.
Okay.
It's like
That's what I was going to say, from birth to death.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, not death yet, but
Yeah.
But he also sees it as old age is a time for him to proclaim the wondrous deeds. He says that in 17, and then he says, until I proclaim your might to another generation, your power to all those to come. So I don't know if obligation is the right word, but he definitely sees that as part of his life is to proclaim to the next generation.
Okay, so I'm going to put that as another observation. Proclaim in old age. There's one more thing about youth and old age that I think you want to see. It's there.
Is it the steadfastness of God?
That's there, but that's not about this.
He says he doesn't want to be abandoned by God in his old age.
Okay, that's his plea. Yeah, so his plea, we'd say, don't abandon. How many times does youth and old age show up?
I see at least 3 times.
Okay, where do you see those?
9, 17, and 18.
So verse 6, 9, 17, 18. 5. All right, so let's see. 5 says, "For you are my hope, O Lord, my confidence from my youth. I've leaned on you from birth." So if we're using parallelism and asking how do the lines interact with each other, I'm not really assuming that he means to make a big deal between birth and youth, but maybe he means infancy to young years, perhaps. Okay, so then we had verse 9, "Don't discard me in my old age as my strength fails." Okay, I see that as the first time he talks about it. The whole thing is moving from, I know that's not very neat, but verse 5 starts with youth, verse 6, his birth. 7's just sort of a side comment. 8 is what he's doing all day long. I think of all day long as like every day. So the middle years, the middle days, all the days in between. So you got youth, all the days, and then verse 9, "Don't discard me in my old age as my strength." So I see that as one, personally. That's just as I'm observing, that's what I'm thinking. And then somebody said 17, "God, you've taught me from my youth, and I still proclaim your wondrous works. Even while I'm old and gray, do not abandon me while I proclaim your power." So it's 2 times. So that's interesting. He says it, so that's the first thing we noticed. There's a sort of a timestamp of youth and old age, but then we notice he does this twice in the psalm. That's interesting. Okay, any other things, and we'll keep going to the next question. Okay, if we see something, we can throw it up there. All right, the second question we have is what type or genre. We already know that, and we've already been looking at characteristics. So real quick, just where do we see these characteristics? Do we see anything that's different from this or similar? Like what do we make about our characteristics? For example, in some kind of trouble, we notice like Psalm 131 really doesn't have any trouble, right? And then we notice in Psalm 23 it was theoretical, but then Psalm 3 there's many, and he says it several times, right? So that's just we notice that this is a characteristic. It may or may not always be present. In this case, it is. Yeah, in this case, it is, right? Eric?
I was going to say it's interesting that in a lot of ways it's similar to Psalm 3 with being surrounded by enemies, but this is different in that also he's old and his strength is failing. So not only are there the enemies, but his body itself is starting to fail and become weak.
Okay, so that's interesting. I don't know where to put this. I'll just write it here, but we have enemies, right? But what's the primary problem in this psalm, you think?
It seems like he's approaching old age, death, decreasing, but God is not like that.
Yeah, God's not like that. Yep. Okay, what I would say, what I think as I meditate on this is, Mary Jo, you have something? No, go ahead. You might.
Oh, I was just going to say you were talking about enemies, but the enemies apparently want to bring him down in his confidence in the Lord.
So like it says, my enemies have spoken against me, and those who watch for my life have consulted together. Seize him, for there's no one to deliver him.
Yeah, so they're opportunistic, right? What's causing the enemies to look at this opportunity? What is it that they're seeing that's making them say, "Hey, Mike"?
I think that's where the old age comes in, is when he was young, he was strong enough to kind of fend them off and kind of pray, but he was doing a lot of the work. Now he's like someone who needs crutches, like, I just can't do this on my own anymore. You know?
And the reality is nobody comes back from old age, right? You can catch a cold, and you can be praying, God, please help me. This is a bad cold. I'm asking for help. But you expect, like, I'm going to come back from this. I'm going to be okay next week, hopefully, or if you're Lennian, next month, with his latest ailment, right? But nobody comes back from old age, right? He's facing the last hurdle, the last great trouble. We said one of the early weeks, what's the real enemy in the Psalms? And you had it, Bob. Remember what you said?
Old age.
It's old age. Yeah. Old age is causing him not to remember. Yeah. See, you don't come back from that. No. It's sin and death. Sin and death. And so here he is. It's the real enemy of this psalm is his old age. And that's what's giving his enemies the opportunity. You have to dig, you have to like keep staring at it, right? And keep like asking these questions. But as you do, you start, that little nuance right there shapes how you start to understand this psalm. What's going on in this psalm? What's he saying? What is it that he's after? Donna, you got something?
Yeah. I just find it so interesting. It's like he's trying to convince God or others. He says, what he can do. Even though he's old, he says, my mouth will tell of your righteousness. I will come and proclaim your might. I will proclaim, I can still do it. Like there's like this little bit of him that's still, even though I'm old, don't forget what I can do.
Mm-hmm. Well, to Molly, good point. And that's similar to what Molly was saying about proclaiming old age. Basically, what he can do right now is he can trust in the Lord and he can tell everybody, this is what the Lord does for his people, right? So, all right, back to characteristics real quick. So we noticed some kind of trouble. In this case, the trouble is old age, which is creating more trouble because his enemies are saying, now's our chance. And that's part of his worry. If this is David, I think it's David. If it's David, what's important here is the covenant is at risk. He's the king. The kingdom is at risk. God has made specific promises to David. And David is dying, and he's worried, or the worry is before him. What's going to happen when I die? And he has good reason for this, right? Absalom, his son, has already tried to usurp it and take it for himself, right? And that happened all through history, right? So here he is. He's looking there, and he can't do anything about it. Because when he's off the scene, he knows there's going to be some fighting, trouble. God is going to have to establish the kingdom and the promises that he made, going all the way back. And it's rooted in his promises to Abraham that he makes to David, 2 Samuel 7. And now David's at the end. And will he trust God to do what he said? That's part of what he's wrestling with. So petition for help, we see that there. He looks to the character and work of God, and confidence is expressed. I think in this case we get all the characteristics. And there's probably other characteristics to think about, but let's keep going. Number 3, are there any clues to the situation, historical setting, or biblical context? So I just said I think it's David. Anything that you see that would help say that? You can disagree with that. I know that's probably hard to do at this stage, but anything, or why would I even say that? Why do I think it might be David? Okay, so he wrote a lot of Psalms, so I got a good shot right away just going, it's probably David. What Psalm are you looking at? I don't know, it's probably David. All right, that's good.
Psalm 72, verse 20, says the prayers of David, the son of Jesse. Psalm 72, verse 20, says the prayers of David, the son of Jesse, are ended.
That's right. Okay, so there's one. The editor, the editor not like your modern CSB, ESV editor, the Holy Spirit inspired editor who's putting the book of Psalms together gives us that note. So that tells us the person assembling all of these had in mind, this is David's. It's not a slam dunk, but that's a clue, right? Because we don't have an author assigned in the psalm. So we can't say 100%, but that's a huge clue. Another one would be, look at Psalm 70 at the beginning. You get a title there for the choir director, David, to bring to remembrance. And then Psalm 72, it says of Solomon, but when you read it, we're about to hear this sermon upstairs, it's about Solomon. Well, Solomon's David's king. David's son, right? And you're going to hear upstairs, I won't try to steal his thunder, but we're going to hear, look at the title in the bulletin, Long Live the King. So Dan's already telling us he thinks this is about David's prayer for Solomon, the son, to carry on the reign. Well, we're noticing in Psalm 71, it seems like that this is placed here because this is the end of David's life. He sees trouble on the horizon. He's praying that the Lord would fulfill his promises. Psalm 72 placed right next to it, a prayer for his son Solomon. So those are some clues. Another thing that you can do, or what I did to kind of come to this conclusion, I went back to the historical narratives, and I started just looking through some of David's end of life stuff. Once I kind of thought maybe this is David, I thought, is there a historical setting somewhere? And commentaries can give you this stuff. Sometimes they can say maybe it's this situation, and you read those situations. You're still conjecturing, but these are good things. So I want to hold that loosely. I think it's David, which helps me clue in. It's also David is the king in Israel, right? And what did we say about the book of Psalms, the way it's arranged, like big picture arrangement? How does the book of Psalms begin? It begins with Psalm 1 and Psalm 2. Psalm 1 about walking with the Lord in his word. Psalm 2 is about the king. Kiss the king before it's too late, essentially. So right at the beginning, we're told at the beginning of the Psalms, we're supposed to think about the Lord's reign through his king. And so that's a theme that runs through all the way through. Okay, number 4, as best you can tell, what is the structure of this psalm? Now this is really hard. And is there anything you see that would help with the structure?
Just really loosely, it seems 3, and I haven't looked to see if there's transition words, but there seems to be opening with a plea, statement of problem, and ending with praise.
Okay. So plea, problem. Look at this alliteration.
I know. It's not me, it's the Lord.
Jack's ready to deliver this. Plea, a problem, and a praise. Okay, that big picture. That's a good outline. Other things you see, anything you throw in or add or change even. We can get a few of these.
I would go promise in between problem and praise.
Oh.
That is preposterous.
Yeah. Wow. Wow, we are rolling. Oh, gosh. Yeah. We've lost control. No. Okay, so we got one. Is that the structure? Are we done? You ready to give up? Okay. Well, I would. Yeah. Proclaim, praise. Yeah. I'm gonna praise. I'm gonna share this. I'm gonna say it. Okay. So this is harder, and this is gonna take you more time. So I admit that. I'm gonna give you at the very end. I have some sheets of my notes, and you'll see in there that I gave. I really struggled with the structure on this one, and basically, the structure is not super clear. So a lot of Psalms, it's just super clear. As you keep working at it, you're like, this psalm, I don't think is that clear. So you'll see I have 2 different ones and they contradict each other. what I landed on, the first one I did is I tried to do it by theme, sort of what Jack's doing, as I just said, sort of, okay, where does, Lord, I seek refuge in thee, let me never, so there's a prayer, let me never, and I sort of followed that down, deliver me, verse 4, and then verse 5, for you are my hope. There's some kind of transition there. I have leaned on you. So I kind of went through and I looked for just transitions of themes. And that's what you'll see in the, is like, that's my first stab at it. But as I was like, I don't know. I don't know if this is it. Like a sermonic outline was not coming from that. I was really struggling with that. So I ended up with the transition that happens with the subject. So that's a different way to think about the structure. But you have Lord, right? And then in verse 1, and then verse 6, I have leaned on you. So you, me, I have leaned on you. Verse 10, my enemies, them. You, me, them. God, do not be far. So back to you, and so on and so forth, all the way down to the end. I came back to us. Therefore, I will praise you with a harp for your faithfulness, my God. I will sing to you with a lyre, O Holy One of Israel. My lips will shout for joy. You could say me. That's what I was thinking. But then, therefore, my tongue will proclaim your righteousness all the day. So it's him and the Lord. Like, I'm going to praise you as you're with me. But the point being is it's not super clear, but there's always some kind of structure. And so the best I could see is it was sort of arranged around the subject. That's what I came up with. But you'll see, you can happy to disagree with that if you want. But part of the reason you want to see the structure is you're trying to see how is the author arranging it in order to see what is the author saying. Right? We've already noticed all kinds of things that have, I hope you can already see how much the psalm makes more sense than when you first read it by this little exercise. So let's keep going past that. Number 5, what literary features do I see that help me discern the emphasis the author might have? Just a few of these, or maybe even if you were going to summarize or give a statement, the emphasis is okay, righteousness. 5 times. Okay, yeah. All right, so he's noticing a repetition of righteousness 5 times. So that's going to shape emphasis. So we need more observations in order to really answer this question. But, okay, anything else? Whose righteousness? It's God's righteousness. So that's different than like a lament, which we'll look at in a few weeks. That's sort of pleading my righteousness. Lord, I have not abandoned you. I have been faithful to you. And the psalmist never means he's sinless. The psalmist never means that when he says, but what he's saying is in this circumstance, it's kind of like Job. It's not that Job never did anything wrong or said something, crass or whatever, but like in his life, it's that in his overall life and the trajectory of his life, Lord, I didn't do anything to deserve all of this. Why is this thing? This is not right. Lord, I plead my righteousness, which doesn't mean perfect righteousness. So in this psalm, you don't have that. It's God's righteousness that's being pleaded. You going to say something, Holly? No? Okay. You look like you were ready. Okay, I'm not going to say anything else about this. You can look in the notes. Number 6, given what you see so far, what do you think the emphasis is? Summarize in a statement and explain why. Anybody want to take a stab at that? You're not going to risk it at this point.
I look at it.
It seems like, right, his enemies are after him because they sense weakness, and David is trying, I won't say desperately, but just he's really laying on thick that God is with him. And God is protecting him, and God still can vanquish. So go ahead, vanquish. So it's like he's responding to his enemies and saying, "See, God's here."
Yeah, that's great. I think it's dead on. It's a psalm of trust. That's the whole thing, and it's ending with praise. So there's a confidence in God expressed, and the enemies are are what he's really worried about, but it's the old age that he can't do anything about it. And so he's stuck, and that leads him back to, well, the Lord will do this. And you'll notice he's pulling from my youth, I've been with you. So he's got things in his past that he's looking back on of God being faithful. Who is it, Bob?
Yeah, just to add to what Jack was saying, in verse 9, he talks about, don't cast me off, don't forsake me. He's feeling that. Don't be far from me, verse 12. But for me, the kicker is when you get down to verse 20. He says, you, God, have shown me many troubles and distresses. You will revive me again. As the older you get, the more troubles and distresses you've seen, and you've been brought through that. And so you're conscious that you can be far away from God, or you're feeling weak and abandoned. Will he revive me again? Okay? Because you've had this lifetime of seeing God deliver you out of these difficult circumstances. And to use your point about death, is he going to deliver me from death, physical death right now, or not?
That's right. And then notice the confidence. The great last enemy is death, right? And then verse 20, but you will revive me again. You will bring me up again, even from the depths of the earth. Yeah. All right, we have to stop. Unfortunately, they'll try to kill me. Jesus, yes. Right. So two things. One, in number 7 on your sheet. I can't speak. Number 8. How does this psalm relate to Jesus? What aspect of the gospel is represented here? Does the gospel affect how we read this? Yes. Resurrection, I think, is the main one. If we had more time, what I'd want to do is press us to say, is there any other aspect of the gospel? But Jai next week is doing Messianic Psalms, and he's going to try to focus a little bit more on the gospel connection. So how do you get to Jesus here? We get to Jesus here in a few ways. One, if this is David and the promise of the kingship, well, that's kingship. So there's another gospel theme. Jesus is the son of David. Jesus is the answer to these prayers. The resurrection is also not only in Jesus' resurrection, but the promise of resurrection and the kingdom of Jesus that is forever, right? So you get rule on the other side. There's different ways that you can think about the gospel and how this is taking us to Jesus. Because his answer, you will revive me, somebody might say, how so? What do you mean? Well, that takes you to Jesus. So we'll let that happen next week. So I'm going to close in prayer. Give some to Jai, give some to somebody else, Molly. These are just my notes. They are not the authoritative word on Psalm 71. And you may read something that we said something different in here today. Those are my notes at the time. But those are the notes that I kind of assembled. I tried to write them similar to how we were planning to do this class so that you could kind of follow along and match it. And it's just meant to show you that's how I worked through it and how I was kind of thinking about it, just to help you. Okay? So let me close in prayer. Father in heaven, we thank you for these Psalms. Thank you for our time. And God, we just pray that we would be confident in you, that we would trust in you. In Jesus' name, amen.